Okay, thanks, Troy. Here I will provide a quick overview of those emerging technologies and discuss their relationships to the domain name systems. The first one that Troy mentioned is quantum computing. With quantum computing, core bits can represent both 0 and 1s at some times. As a result, this allows quantum machines to perform certain calculations much faster. And now, this poses a potential threat to the crypto underlines DNSSEC and DNS over TLS, this kind of things. The BAW, such as DNSSEC and DNS over TLS, secure the DNS. But here's the sense, the quantum computers are probably decades away to break to that crypto. In the last years, the RSEC published a document to discuss the quantum computing, how the quantum computing impact the DNS ecosystems. And as the conclusion is that those quantum computers are probably decades away to break to that crypto. The RSEC is short for the Root Server System Advisory Committee, and the document is written by the RSEC caucus members. In the meantime, as sometimes the post-quantum computers has been developed to secure systems against future quantum attacks. So before the quantum attacks become a real threat, the DNS community will need to switch over to those post-quantum for both signatures and key exchanges. Now, even though quantum computers are not immediately risk for the DNS right now, if we keep using the currently crypto as it is, it could threaten the DNS security down the road. So the key for the DNS is to transition to post-quantum crypto. This will make the DNS prevent possible quantum attacks in the future. The second one Troy mentioned is metaverse. Maybe Dr. Wang Wei is the expert of metaverse. The metaverse is like the virtual world where you can walk around and interact with things using VR technologies. And in the metaverse, you can meet up with people in the shared online spaces. I think, in my opinion, the metaverse could impact DNS in some ways, such as, first, it will put a lot of stress on DNS servers. This is because the metaverse needs fast access to the virtual spaces with low network latency, which means that more work for DNS servers. Second, the metaverse also creates opportunities for DNS, such as selling virtual goods could make money for people who manage domain names. This may become a demand for new types of web addresses to suit the metaverse. So in summary, while the metaverse could overload the DNS infrastructure, it may also become an opportunity and bring profit and open up new users for DNS to meet the needs of virtual spaces. The third one is AI. AI uses machine learning to simulate human intelligence. AI powers many internet systems, including DNS management platforms, such as threat detection. AI models can identify malicious DNS queries, as Kurt said. And the second one is vulnerability analysis. AI can be leveraged for the software vulnerability discovery and the misconfiguration discovery. The third one is traffic optimizations. AI could be used to optimize the DNS traffic load balances. In general, AI has provided a potential to improve the DNS system's availability and the security and efficiency. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, an interesting thing you've said is using AI for vulnerability, for finding vulnerabilities. Are there any existing works on this?
It's a really good question. In recent years, a set of papers has been accepted by top network conferences such as CCOM and SDIs. Many researchers leverage AI's algorithms to discover the misconfigurations existing in the real world, and the results show that it is a really good tool to discover the unknown misconfigurations. And if As anybody is interested, maybe find the paper in the CCOM and ASDI in recent years.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to our next speaker, we have the same guiding question as Karel's. So, what is the new applications and technologies that rely on DNS? Could you introduce some examples and their impact, please?
Okay. I'm very happy to be here. Actually, it's the first in-person event I participated in the past 3 years. So first of all, I need to apologize, to beg your apology if my English go wrong, because I haven't spoken English for a long time. Actually, there's, from my personal point of view, there's not many new applications, but I'll tell you what I'm working on. I've been DNS industry for like over 15 years. I've been working in Scenic for like over a decade, but now I was assigned to Guangzhou to in charge of a IoT platform, especially about the IoT identifier. It's not the identifier for servers, it's identifier for things, for like a bottle of water. So, so I noticed that. I mean, IoT is not a new thing, but actually it is still a booming industry in China, and there are like about 1,000 different standards for IoT identifiers. I mean, every vertical industry, they intend to create their own coding, their coding standard for naming the stuff they're in charge of. But basically, technically, there are all these standards, all this coding, they fall into two categories when it comes to the resolving. One is to mapping to convert the IoT identifier into DNS. They reverse just like JS1, they reverse their codes and put the DNS as a postfix. Then they use the DNS resolving. Okay. The second part is they put a domain name in front of the identifier, like a handle or DOI. Okay. There is I mean, in China, there are a couple of organizations, they follow the DOI model. They created their own handle-like identifier. But when it comes to the resolving, there's no resolving. Basically, it's more like a HTTP query, right? So it also relies on the DNS. So from my personal point of view, there are many IoT identifier registration systems, but there's only one resolving system at the bottom layer, that's DNS. I'm sorry. And in China, there's also another very interesting application about IoT, about the thing identifier. That is, some of the customers, they leverage the IPv6 directly as the IoT identifier, because IoT is unique and accessible globally. So if they use their own identifier, there will be a problem when it comes to the cross-border access. Like I bought a bottle of I don't know what is chinjo in Japanese, or what is the name of chinjo in Japanese? Sake, okay. I bought a bottle of sake from Japan, and there is an IoT identifier, obviously, but and a QR code. But I scan it, I can access it, because it is because it is a local standard in Japan, so I can read it in China. My China apps have no idea where's the interface, where it's supposed to get the information from. That's why some of our customers, and we encourage them to apply IPv6, the full length of IPv6, so 128 bits as a IoT identifier. Especially there's RFC, there's RFC to tell us how to convert the 48 MAC address into the interface ID, the 46 bits interface. And there's another RFC to tell us how to convert we call it a CGA, right? Cryptography generator address, to convert the key into the universe ID. And we are encouraging our customer to create their own ways to converting their existing IoT label into the IPv6 address, which is make it globally accessible. And we will help them to leverage the DNS, reverse DNS lookup to make it whose accuracy, but not for DNS, but for the IPv6 addresses, which means the IPv6 address will be used as IoT identifier. And also we can, the DNS will help us. The reverse DNS lookup will help us to provide more accurate information for the IoT things, to help the end customer to read the information and make it traceable. So that's what I'm doing. So I was assigned to Guangzhou to be in charge of this platform, the IoT platform. And that's why I came here yesterday by cruise, by boat. It's pretty close to Hong Kong, only 1.5 hours by cruise. So.
Okay, thank you. You said that you mentioned two important concepts of today's internet. One is IPv6, and one is the IoT. So do you think that the IoT will change fundamentally to the DNS, because it's sending a lot of queries and manufacturer-specific queries? What do you think is the impact of IoT over the DNS?
Okay. Unlike DNS and IP addresses, which was invented to connect the networks, the internet is the interconnected networks. So IP addresses and DNS domain name are supposed to accessible globally at the global scale. But IoT, for most of the scenarios of IoT, it is basically a local scenario. It's a vertical industry, or it is basically a local scenario. So the users, they have no motivation to make it accessible globally, right? So that's why for some of the IoT identifier standard, there's no concerns about prefix or postfix. They only concentrate, they only pay attention to how the label is supposed to be to reflect their management purpose, intention. But what we are doing is to help our customer to finally, when the goods or the things when it comes to another scenario, when some users from other industry want to access information, so what I'm supposed to be, right? So what we are trying to do is help them to put a postfix or what is a prefix or postfix before or behind after the label. From my observation is, that's why I asked the Gentran yesterday, when exactly ICANN will publish the second round of new GTLD. So some of traditional IoT identifier management organization, they are not satisfied with using the second level domain name, but they want to have their own unique and identifiable top level domain, right, to replace their existing second level domain. To make their IoT identifier be traceable and to have a pretty remarkable identification. So that is, I think that is the industry requirement for the second round. One of the requirements for the second round, new GTLD.
Okay. You mentioned new GTLD. I'm not very sure. Is .iot now available or not?
It's definitely not available. I personally, my team is waiting for the new second round because we have been, waiting for the IoT top TOD for a long time now.
So you're going to apply for that?
I probably would. I'd love to join the bid for the IoT. I think I'm not the only one. I think I'm not the only one who is interested in this name.
Okay, thank you. So our speakers have all shared their very inspiring insights over our guiding questions. So I suggest we take some time for questions right now before we move on to the discussion material. So does anybody have any questions for the comments of the speakers? Should I be responsible for?
Sorry, thank you. Michael Fleming for the record. I spoke yesterday on brand TLDs and new GTLDs, so I'm going to jump on what you just mentioned there. Why would it be limited to just .iot, do you think, for applying for something that could be used as an identifier within IoT technology? Could it be other top-level domains as well? Do you think other, for example, perhaps brands could utilize what they're doing for a similar application of what you're thinking?
As I said, the IoT users or the IoT holders, they are using the HTTP query instead of DNS resolving to help the customers to find the information. But more and more label management management teams, they're not satisfied with this HTTP queries. They need their own identifiable prefix or postfix to show that they are authorized entities. They are authoritative entities to manage this kind of IoT identifiers. So I think that is one of the intention. Another is that there are many giant companies in China. They have their own standards. They're not satisfied with using the existing top-level domain, using the second-level domain like .cn or some other informations. I noticed that in the first round of new GTLD, I mean the Chinese market was not ready. There are only few companies have their own brand names like Baidu or ICBC, less than 10, I think. But the situation have changed. If there is second round new GTLD ready, I'm confident that dozens or hundreds of these giant companies will be eager to do that. And there's another motivation because some of the companies have already leveraged the DNS as a technology, DNS technology, to build their own private domain to execute their management inside the scope. But also they want, in some other scenario, they want their applications could be accessible within the scope, also globally. So which means to transform their private domain, private name into a formal legal top-level domain under the ICANN. That's it.
Okay, any other questions?
Hi, Jean-François Gerald from the IO Foundation for the record. Last September, during ICANN 75, there was a presentation from the guys from Ethereum on their ENS. We were both attending. And I was just curious about, have they been able to create better arguments than they did during the presentation so far? Has there been any improvement that you feel is relevant enough? Because, as you were mentioning yesterday, they are basically lacking a lot in terms of policy. There's a lot of limitations in how the technology is applied, and I was wondering, what's your opinion on the matter? Thank you.
I assume that's for me because I was in that room and asking those hard questions. So they've not really been back into that kind of environment since then. they did say they'd go away and think about some of these things, and I take them at their word that they are thinking about these things. But they're not the only namespace like this, right? So there are multiple proposals for different kinds of namespaces. Some blockchain-based, not like that one, some not. Most of them, and I do, we try and embrace these people and bring them into the multi-stakeholder discussions, and like sort of let them experience the problems we've been facing over the last 25 years, and we've been trying to solve, and they've got all of that ahead of them. So there are real questions about public safety. What do you do? One of the questions that I posed in that meeting was, what are you going to do when law enforcement comes to you and says this specific name is doing something criminal, and that law enforcement agent is from a completely different jurisdiction to you, and maybe even a completely different legal system. It's like, what are your policies? And in most of these environments, when you start that discussion with them, there's a lot of umming and ahhing and going, well, yeah, we haven't quite solved that yet, but we will. And often the concept you get is, well, we can solve that with code. And I used to be a young engineer that thought you could solve everything with code. Not that long ago, but quite a while ago. And you can't, you need policies, etc. So I've not seen like any major documentation coming out showing what their policies are. I'm sure they're working on it. They're going to have to solve this problem if they want it to be more broadly accepted. And that's not just for them, that's for all of these. And of course, they're going to have to deal with the scaling issues and the many other issues that come with some of these alternative technologies, which, by the way, most of them still rely on the DNS because they're on the internet.
Anyone else? Okay, so I think we shall move on to the discussion questions. And for your record, these questions are for all of you to comment. It's not thrown to any specific person. So first question is the DNS still relevant to today's internet? I think people in this room will agree because it's our lifeline after all. We would like to dig in a little more. So in what areas specifically, actually in your own areas, how is the DNS still related to works that you're currently working on? Maybe Karel from a security perspective.
No, I can start. I was thinking about this yesterday. What I'm going to talk about, and one of the things that I came back to or had to think about. I was at an American university last year, and they had this sticker on a door somewhere that said, IETF, we believe in rough consensus and running code, and then scratched through with a red marker and a very dirty word, no, just put it in DNS. And that is still today's reality. A lot of things that, if you think about it, maybe should have a different place, but people want to get something done, and there's this existing platform that everything already knows how to work with it, and you can just add another text record and come up with your own schema of how you put something in a text record, and bang, it's in a globally distributed, extremely scalable, very fast database that anyone can access at basically any time from any device. And that's really, really powerful, and we've sort of abused that as well. We started putting our reputational data in the DNS, and we've gone a step further. We put reputational data about the DNS in DNS, of course, because why not? And actually, I think that's great. That's really good, and that shows that it's still super relevant, and it's a great way of leveraging. I mean, I love DNS. I'm kind of a DNS nerd, so it's just really really great to be able to do such things, and it, yeah, I don't see it going away. Any, like what John said, if you look at some of the alternatives that have come up, they have a lot of problems to solve still that DNS has solved many years ago, and so there's nothing that compares to this. If you look at it from a technological point of view, what you were talking about on the boat yesterday is that the fact that this has been around for so long and still basically works. There's nothing else on the internet that is anything remotely like this, and that is a testament to how well designed the protocol and the extensions are. And yes, it's getting more complicated, and this is a threat because, well, maybe not to the DNS itself, but new people come in and they don't understand the history that the protocol and the people managing the protocol and the policies around us have gone through. So they come up with new ideas, and then people say, yeah, maybe you should think about these things, and maybe you should think about it from a law enforcement perspective. Oh yeah, okay, scratch your head, let's go back to the drawing board. And in the meantime, the DNS system, with all its stakeholders, just the train keeps going and keeps moving forward, and that's really good.
Okay, so now that we're talking about security in the DNS, I think we shall need some background on the current risks or threats related to DNS, and I would like to invite my colleague Baojun here to give us a little background. What are the threats or risks associated with the DNS?
Okay, thanks, Troy. Here also I will provide a quick overview of DNS security and the DNS threats. A set of traditional DNS risks such as DDoS attacks, domain hijacking, man-in-the-middle attacks, and the DNS software vulnerabilities. And in the recent years, a series of emerging DNS risks are also proposed. The first one, such as namespace collisions. Specifically, when new DNS TLDs are introduced, there's a risk of namespace collisions with existing domain names extensions or internal namespace. This can lead to DNS errors and leaks of private information. The second one, it is also a hot topic in recent years. It is centralization concerns of DNS ecosystem. Currently, the DNS today depends on networks of servers and providers, including large provider DNS services such as Google and Cloudflare. Despite the fact that it provides convenience for internet users, they also introduce security risks of centralizations that a few large providers for DNS resolutions. The second one is governance changes. The DNS governance introduced a set of policies and decision makers on topics like new domain name extensions, rights protections, and DNS security practices. Governance changes arise when stakeholders' interests, culture perspectives, and technologies do not align, but require cooperations. In summary, the DNS ecosystem today faces technical, operational, and policy-level risks that require continuous risk management. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, I think the two types of threats are especially related to our audiences. So the first is namespace collision, so watch out, new GTLD appliers. And the second is about DNS. Oops. All right. Hello? I must say something wrong. Hello? All right. All right, shouldn't blame on the new GTLDs. So okay, so the next threat you mentioned is DNS service centralization. As a matter of fact, in our pre-event webinar 2 weeks ago, we've invited Jan Schaumann from Akamai. He talked about his research over DNS centralization of A records and IPv6 records in naked domains, and find that there is really some centralization there. Some top cloud providers like Google Cloudflare are controlling like over 50% of traffic to these apex domains, and that's really some shocking results. And so do come to the readout this afternoon, and I'll be illustrating the results more. All right, so back to our discussion. John, do you have any comments on as the role?
Oh, absolutely. Let's see if this one works. No. I'll take Carol's. Carol's doesn't work either. What's going on with the microphones? Okay, there we go. This one's working. So various things. Name collisions is basically the result of that thing that we talk about, uniqueness. It's critical that this is my opinion, and I think many people's opinion in this ecosystem, that we at all costs preserve the uniqueness, so that when a user types something into a browser or uses an app or however they connect to the internet, so that they get where they're expecting to go. So name collisions is a major issue. It's not just about new GTLDs. As you were alluding to, there are many businesses that use their own namespaces. And if you look at the root server traffic, so the first place on the internet, we actually see that, right? We can see those queries, and what that often is either a network or a specific device type which has DNS embedded into the device badly, leaking those queries out into the public. So it's not just everything over the DNS and DNS over everything, but it's also DNS everywhere. So these issues are real. The centrality of the DNS issue is an interesting one because it's become more popular in recent years to talk about it, but there are, just like other things we talk about, like DNS abuse and other things, there are different definitions of what it means and what people are looking at. So we saw some ideas coming out of Europe, which was really about the centrality of the recursive resolvers and of the servers that people were using instead of their ISPs. And there was a lot of discussion about whether or not 2 or 3 major providers were providing a large percentage of the resolution within the European Union. We happen to have data and access to data, so we did a study on that, and it turned out that it wasn't quite as bad as people were saying. So it's very easy to get onto these things and say, it's bad, it's really happening. So it's great that people like Akamai are actually doing research and providing real data so we can actually see what is happening. And sometimes people convolute where hosting is happening as to where DNS, obviously if there's a lot of hosting happening somewhere, there'll be a lot of DNS there. Is that really DNS centralization or is that hosting centralization? So there's a lot of discussions to happen in that world. Things that we in my team are looking at the moment. We kind of did the everything over the DNS thing when we worked with some farming institutes in Latin America to track the movement of cattle using DNS records. So you can literally pretty much put everything over the DNS. But at the moment, we're also looking at things like the lack of error signaling within the DNS protocols. So that's one where we're writing, some of my staff are writing RFCs at the moment to try and improve error reporting, because when you talk about security, being able to actually detect what's going on is important, especially DNSSEC error reporting. So the beauty of the DNS is it can evolve and you can keep doing these things, and it's really important that the academic world, we also occasionally release academic papers into academic institutes, are focusing on actually bringing data into the discussions. So it's really good to see the people like Akamai who have been in the industry for a very long time, and also research institutes actually doing studies. And love to read anything you guys bring out.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot of. Actually, I've noticed the theme of IDS 2022 was about service centralization, and we have multiple scholars presenting their results. Sometimes the results might be, some people say that it is a serious problem. Somebody say it's not. So I think we're just, it's for us to understand this problem. Okay, so Mr. Wang, do you have any comments in your area about DNS relevance to today's internet or to your specific area?
Okay. Hello. I just talked a lot about the IoT, right?
Yeah.
What I'm doing, or what I observed in another area is about the Web3, the digital asset, and the domain name. First of all, I want to thank Jiarong and all the ICANN team who built the multi-stakeholders in the past 30 years. I think DNS is a perfect balance between the semantic, meaning label, and the resolving engineering mechanism. And also, it is a perfect consensus and compromise between different stakeholders. I mean, I don't know what's the governance policy for the digital asset in other countries, but obviously in China and some other conservative governments, the digital assets cannot be traded freely. Okay, but globally, at the global scale, IP address and domain name may be the only outstanding two resources that could be traded legally. So some of our partners are trying to figure out a way to mapping the traditional domain name ecosystem and the digital asset ecosystem to make a digital asset have a domain name and to make it interoperable. And on the other hand, it means they could trade the domain name instead of trade the digital asset directly. Okay, or trade the IP address. And it is basically it's legal globally, I think. I mean, all governments support this IP address and the domain name trading. It may not, maybe it's not 100% support, but they accept it. So that is the amazing part of DNS and DNS. I mean, it's not a perfect utopia system, but it is a workable system and accepted by the different entity, different stakeholders in ICANN, in the ICANN multi-stakeholder model. For that, I need to thank ICANN again. And I think if there will be second round of new GTLD application, and I believe there will be some other, the new GTLD applicants will come from the Web3 industry or the digital asset industry. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So our last question is more close to reality, and so the question is, what are the opportunities if one wants to be or stay in the DNS industry? Excuse me. Yeah, it's part of, we kind of, our life actually depends on the DNS. Our work actually depends on the DNS. So the DNS has been there for like 40 years, and can we continue to rely on it? Can we continue to work over it? What are the future trends? So I would like to invite our speakers to discuss on that. First from the internet community, John, would you like to go first?
So I'm not going to talk about new rounds and new TLDs, which is what you're expecting when you talk about. There are people managing DNS zone cuts or TLDs and at lower levels that are finding ways to use the DNS in new ways. You know, some of the TLDs from the last round are operating in different manners to the generic, we just sell domain names and you do what you want with them. You know, we have people like .bank who are focusing on the banking industry and security and are deploying DMARC across their zone so that everybody is using DMARC. So there are opportunities to use the namespace as a policy lever, because these are, you know, that's what namespaces are. They're all kind of equal. They're just strings and bits. But what defines them is often their various policies of how they get used. And we're seeing people, and having over the last years, use their policy leverage on their namespace to implement new and innovative things. And to try and push, a lot of this has been trying to push the security awareness within particular industries or particular industry spaces. We've also seen people indeed trying to attest to objects, for example in art, where you're using the domain space to actually catalog and attest to art pieces. So there is opportunity to do new things and more interesting things where you need some form of ledger or some form of cataloging mechanism, you know, like DOA is, but without the resolution. You can actually do that in the DNS. And I'm seeing more and more people trying to think out the box about how they can use the DNS for different real-world purposes, and that's encouraging.
Okay, thank you. Next I would like to invite Karel. So in our private discussion yesterday, we've mentioned something, is that we both agree that DNS analysis is very important for solving security problems, but data analysis and data collection sometimes clashes with privacy, and especially recently, like policies and legislations like the GDPR, CCPA has come in, and some important data like who is have been invalid as it's in practically in its entirety, and that's really a bad news for security analysis. So what is the future opportunities to use DNS for security analysis?
I think, yeah, no, yes, yes, no. Yes.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it works. Okay. So I think there's still a lot of future opportunity there, as long as good echo going on here. This is pretty good. The voice of God. So no, I think there's a lot of opportunity still there, even though privacy regulations make things harder. Usually there are like carve-outs for security applications. It just means that you need to do. Usually you need to do a little bit more paperwork, a little bit more structure to it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I don't think it'll go away. It used to be on the internet, everything was unencrypted, and for some things that was great because you could look at everything, but for some things it's actually not great because security was not always there. And so it's generally, I believe it's generally a good thing to encrypt all the things, and even if that may have maybe a short-term negative impact on some of the data collection, we'll we'll work our way around there, I think. As long as you can show that what data you collect, you do actually meaningful research that can guide future policy making, then you show the value of collecting that, you show the value of analyzing it. I think people will be able to say, yeah, okay, this is a good thing, and we should continue trying to provide the data and to work with the data. So that's good. There was one thing that I was thinking about what we were talking about here. One thing you mentioned about centralization. There is also sort of a political aspect to it. When you mentioned the whole EU thing, saying that, hey, there's only a couple of parties that do most of the resolving. What you forgot to mention, I think, was that none of those were European, and I think that's sort of what kept it. Yeah, okay, you didn't forget. Okay, so I'll mention it. The Europeans see that a lot of resolving is done by a very small number of parties. Okay, I guess they build a great product, but none of those parties are European, and that is sometimes what stresses governments out. And I think that's something that there is. We should try to prevent, as DNS people, to not have the DNS become a political thing too much, because there's I think one of the wonders of it is that we have this truly global system that works in the same way everywhere. And if you look at the current geopolitical climate, there are a lot of countries that fundamentally do not agree with how other countries govern their country. And but we still have this one thing together where without namespace collisions, and it's probably much easier than we would like to break that, and we shouldn't do that, because what we have is something that's quite unique.
Okay, you talked about from the policy perspective. That reminds me of one thing, of the ongoing lawsuit between Quad 9 and in the European region. For those not familiar, I think it's a German court have asked Quad 9 to block certain domain names for users in the European region because of, I think it's trademark infringement or some reason. I'm not sure if the final decisions have been made, but the internet community, especially the DNS industry, I think has been paying attention to this event. So is this a worrying trend to you?
It's really easy to get around certain things like that. If you don't like how Quad 9 resolves your thing, then you go to Quad 8 or Quad 4 or Quad 13. And so that's not always. I mean, I get that some court says, look, in this country we think this is bad, and somebody should do something about it. Here's this party who's enabling this bad thing, and we want you to stop enabling it. But if the workaround is just to change a number in your computer from an 8 to a 9, and it still works, I don't think that's the right approach. So I think this is not the way to go.
Okay. Okay. So okay. Thank you. Next. Baojun, a little bit about for folks in the academia, what are the future research trends that are related to DNS?
Okay, thanks, Troy. Actually, it is really an important and interesting question for me. In the past few years, many people ask me, the DNS protocol is too simple and too naive. Why do you choose DNS as your research direction? Yeah, it is really a hard question for me. But actually, I also, because I am a researcher, I also spend a lot of time to devote and spend a lot of time to study the DNS research. I find that in the past 5 years, especially in the academic I studied a series of top security conferences like the Big Four, such as Using Security, CCS, IEEE Security and Province, and NDSS. The above four conferences are regarded as the Big Four conferences in the security, network security. And I find that more than 20 papers are published at those conferences in the past 5 years. Besides, I also studied what those papers are researched. And finally, I found that about more than 20 papers can be grouped into 3 types. The first one is that researchers have devoted a lot of time to study the novel DNS cache posing attacks. Researchers discovered novel attack techniques that explore vulnerabilities in the DNS implementations, such as bind, unbind, and Microsoft DNS. This is the first type. And the second type is that many researchers also find the real-world threat in the DNS delegation, such as the dangling domain hijacking, especially the subdomain hijacking. And they find that in the top 1 million domain names, there's thousands of popular subdomains can be hijacked by the attacker. This is the second type. And the third type is more interesting, is that security researchers developed measurement techniques and designed the measurement platforms to understanding the DNS ecosystem in the real world, especially how the DNS traffic are manipulated by the real-world adversary, such as VPN softwares and the national gratifier routes, this kind of things. Many researchers many people design the main platforms and understand the characteristics of those adversaries, and to examine the progresses of the DNS manipulation in the real world. In summary, over the last 5 years, we have seen the exciting advance in the DNS security research areas. And I believe that in the future, there are still a lot of great opportunities for the research on this area. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have talked a lot about the IoT identifier and digital asset identifier. I just want to remind everyone that what I'm talking about is what the market goes in China, at least in China. And there are many organizations in China that they trying to create their own identifier standard, and they provide the registration service just like ICANN. Because ICANN is so successful, I mean, ICANN created a successful governance model, as well as a business model, and ICANN makes a lot of money. So as a MPO, that's why many Chinese MPO try to make a lot of money, just like ICANN. But as I mentioned, they pay a lot of attention on how to create a label and provide the registration services, but they didn't they did a few work on the resolving, because they leave this work to the existing DNS or HTTP queries. Why? Because ICANN does not share money with the recursive service provider. If we think resolving service is so important and recursive service is so important, like Quad A, Quad 1, or EU, why ICANN have never shared a penny with these stakeholders? If there's no rewarding mechanism in the existing ICANN model, can we create a new rewarding mechanism for the recursive party? If I set up a recursive service in my home, okay, maybe the traffic is pretty small, but it's still valuable to the whole internet. Why? One word, one internet. Can I get a penny from ICANN? If ICANN cannot afford it, or pay it, can we create a blockchain-based rewarding mechanism which give me an opportunity to make some money from it by providing valuable revolving service to the internet users? I mean, there are many blockchain-based DNS platform, ENS or BNS yesterday or some other NS, okay? But what they do is transform, they move the authoritative part, the DNS registration function to the blockchain. My personal point of view, what is more meaningful is to unite the recursive service provider to create a blockchain, to make them valuable, resolving service really valuable. So that is my team doing now. We're trying to writing a software to convert the recursive service into be a real miner or ledger keeper. I mean, the authoritative, no matter it's zone file, root zone file, or second level zone file, authoritative party, they publish that data, but the real ledger keeper is a recursive. So they should have an opportunity to get a reward from providing the valuable services. Can we convert the recursive server into a miner? So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to, doing some research on it, and hope I hope I can get some kind of support from you guys. Thank you.
I'll give you $1 if you really need it. But the resolution services are often not seen as sort of an end service to the users, right? They're a means to get there. But there are people running resolution services for some form of profit, right? So if you can devise a way to run a service and you can convince people to pay you for that, then it is a valuable service. And we're seeing that. We're seeing people that do pay for resolution services that are more secure than the standard.
Usually you add a layer of security to it, but in DNS basically comes down to you not answer certain questions, or you change the answer to certain questions.
Like Quad 9.
Yeah, and then people are willing to pay for it.
Yeah. So there is a business model there. ICANN does bring in a lot of money, but we also spend a lot of it. So we're not as rich as people like to think. But I'll personally give you $1 if it will help you get better resolution.
All right. So as our time is running low, we're opening the final round of questions. Do we have any questions from our audiences? Please pass the mic, please.
I'll chip in too.
Hi, Peter Offord on the hour, CCTLD in Australia. One of the things Outer looking at the moment is the impacts of other services that enable organisations, usually small businesses, to establish a presence on the internet. So the argument goes, if I'm a small business, why can't I just create a Facebook page or create a business profile with Google and I'm done? Because most of the people trying to find me will type into their browser, electrician near Canberra or somewhere, and it'll come back and find me because my business is in Canberra and I put that in the profile. And so they haven't had to deal with any of the DNS to make that happen. If every business decided that was the way to go, then people would stop using DNS names potentially, and all the revenue models that we've just been talking about would perhaps be impacted. Is that a real threat? I guess that is the question part of that. Is there a genuine threat that businesses or individuals are not going to bother with an internet presence by getting a DNS name, associated hosting, mail hosting, web hosting, and so on, or they're just going to sign up with a Google business profile or Facebook profile or any other on presence because a search engine makes that very easy.
So some businesses do that. Some of these, so if you're in the small retail business, platforms like Etsy and places like that allow you to do that kind of thing. What I've seen happen a lot, and I have a lot of friends that run small to medium enterprises, is yes, they may use that back end, but they still want something that's memorable about them. So what a lot of these services allow you to do is actually to register a domain name and just point that to these services. So they're still using something that is memorable for their business, but they're not necessarily running the back-end services. They're not going through the hassle of having to set up websites and all these portals. That is a threat or an opportunity, depending how you look at it, also to hosting and all the rest of the way. It's just a change in the way that people do their online content. And we've gone through that over the last 20, 30 years. And there is more of that, but there are also people still doing these businesses.
I think a big part of, if you get your own domain name, it becomes portable. If you're not happy anymore with, for example, Etsy, you point your thing to Shopify, and you run your thing there. And if you just take only the Facebook username or the Instagram username or whatever, then you can't move that around. You can't move that same namespace to some other provider. And having a domain name, gives you that flexibility. And a lot of people, especially on a smaller scale, start off with just the Facebook page or the Instagram page or whatever. But I think that almost everybody at some point when they grow, they say, yeah, okay, I think I need a domain name. And I don't see that going away anytime soon.
People are still buying domain names.
Okay, we have one question from remote. So this is an advanced discussion for me talking about DNS governance. How to make sure that no one is left behind, either stakeholders or like governments or CSOs or countries. John, would you like to take that?
So that's a really hard question that in ICANN, being an experiment in multi-stakeholderism, it was an experiment 25 years ago. I was there, we were trying to do things different. And it is a hard question, and all you can do is put resources into it, do the outreach, try and make it easier for people to participate. A lot of people think that to be involved in ICANN governance, you have to go to ICANN meetings. You don't. You can join remotely. There are lots of opportunities. If you're from particular sectors like the government, etc., there are funding mechanisms. And this is not just for ICANN, but also things like the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force. It's a different kind of multi-stakeholder to ICANN. It's a little bit narrower, but they also put a lot of effort and mechanisms into trying to attract people who are not normally there. The hard thing is making people aware that you exist, that are not necessarily the same people you always have involved. For example, most governments are involved in the Government Advisory Committee. We have a lot of governments involved. Attracting governments, we still do work, we still go talk to them and say, please come get involved, it's important. We have a lot of people from the DNS industry, but somebody was talking the other day about the fact that we don't, on one of the panels, that we don't necessarily have enough of the hosting industry or the ISP industry. So you actually have to make a real effort to actually try and think outside of your box and find those people in the other environments that you may not normally reach out to. And it's not easy. A large portion of that money that my colleague would like a slice of is actually spent at ICANN on engagement. We have a lot of
folks going out there trying to not just bring ICANN to other people, but to try and bring those people to ICANN. It is a very hard question, and one I think we struggle with every day.
Okay, thank you. I see we only have 5 minutes left. Maybe one quick question, please.
So my name is Jiang. If you've not met me yesterday, I'm co-hosting this event with HDIRC. So kind of tied to the question that's raised, and John made a very good point. So it's trying to bring people to ICANN is a challenge, and that's why we want to bring ICANN and the discussions to you. This is the whole reason why we're having this forum. And it's a hard thing because the people who touch the DNS, there are so many groups. There's the hosting providers, there are ISPs. How do we bring them together? And that's why we're putting resources to organize these events. And like I mentioned, we're working towards having the forum be an annual event, and we'll go to a different Asian city, Asia Pacific city every year, so that we can come closer to you. And stay in touch with us. Get in touch with me. Get in touch with my team. We will make sure that we stay connected, so we can keep in touch on the current issues, and we can discuss them in a very familiar setting, which is here in the Asia Pacific region amongst our own community. Then when we go to a more global setting, especially for us Asians, where we tend to be very shy culturally, then we also feel very challenged when it comes to the language. But if we practice doing this kind of discussion here, in a more familiar setting, when you go to a global setting, you know where your friends are, and you can practice your talking points, you can practice debating some points together. Then when you go to the global platform, like ICANN or ITN, for example, that's where you can really participate. And I think it's very clear a lot of these issues impact humanity. I'm not talking about the next round. So it's quite clear that some of the issues impact us directly. And that's where we can make an impact if we make a point to raise our voice there. But if we were to take the usual Asian way of doing things, which is, oh yeah, we just leave it to whoever else, then end up being price takers. Then we're not actually leveraging on the multi-stakeholder model of governance. So that's the whole point. And that's why I'm making a shout out here just to say that we want to keep in touch with you. We want to be able to keep the discussion going amongst our community, form a very strong network. And to do that, don't be shy, come and talk to me. I'll introduce you to my team as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see that time is really running low, so we have to just wrap up here. A short closing remark. Is there still a market for DNS? Absolutely yes. We have to agree that. And but there are emergent techs, there are challenges, there are changes, and there are also opportunities for people in different areas. And we must think out of the box and try to find them. And hopefully there will be future, another 40 years or another 80 years, 120 years for the DNS industry, and we're quite opportunistic about that. Okay, so thank you, and I think we shall close this panel discussion here. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and thank you for coming in. I'll see you soon.
Testing. 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 Okay. Testing.
guests. Dear guests, let us proceed to our second plenary section on DNS Industry Outlook. The moderator for this section is Engineer Wilson Wong. Engineer Wilson Wong is the Chief Executive Officer of Hong Kong Internet Registration Corporation Limited, HKIRC, and he is responsible at the highest level for furthering HKIRC's mission to promote .hk domain and Hong Kong as an international center of e-commerce, and to encourage a better understanding and more effective use of the internet and related technology in Hong Kong and across the region. Let us welcome Engineer Wilson Wong. And then may I introduce our panelists. We have Mr. Anu Jain, who is joining us online, CEO and Director of National Internet Exchange of India, NIXI, a part of Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. Hello, Mr. Anu Jain. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. May I also invite other panelists on stage. We have Ms. Sophia Fong, Deputy General Manager, Internet Domain Name System, Beijing Engineering Research Center LLC, ZDNS. She led the construction and operation of the largest cloud service platform for new GTLDs in Asia. Welcome, Sophia. Next, may I invite Mr. Hiro Hotta, a board member and also Senior Executive Vice President of JPRS, which runs .jp CCTLD. He has over 20 years of experience in domain name industry and is currently responsible for business planning and stakeholder communication of JPRS. Welcome, Mr. Hiro Hotta. And then may I invite Mr. Sun Zhao, Head of the Registry Business Department, CNNIC. He has devoted himself in .cn CCTLD and Chinese domain names related work since joining CNNIC in the year of 2000. He has accumulated rich experience in registry management of domain names business and has established a long-term cooperative partnership with Chinese registrars and registries. Welcome, Mr. Sun Zhao. With all our guests on stage, please take your seats. Thank you. In this section, we welcome questions from the audience and encourage interaction. Please feel free to sign into Zoom and leave your question into the Q&A pod. In the following, Wilson will firstly make an introductory speech, and then he will invite our panelists to give their presentation. Now let me pass the floor to Wilson, please.
Thank you. Testing. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome all to join this section, DNS Outlook. DNS is a proven technology for a long time. It played a very critical role in the internet. However, recent years, we have seen a lot of changes, just like the previous section, we talked about the new technology, and also the internet user using the number of users because of pandemic drive, the digital transformation, and also the cyber security issue. So this situation are changing the way we use the internet and also the challenge of DNS infrastructure. So what is the role of DNS in the future? So we still need the DNS, or we should ensure our DNS system is ready for the changes. So in this discussion, we'll explore this question, and we'll discuss the opportunity and challenge of DNS. So without further delay, we would like to talk about the first question. So since we have different people, we have a registrar and registry here, so let's ask a warm-up question. Could you share with us what is your success in your organization to measure? What is the success criteria and what is the success measure? Maybe lady first.
As a representative of ZDNS, ZDNS in the domain industry ecosystem, we act as a registry service provider and also called a backend service provider. We also a registry, we're managing 2 TLDs, and we also a brand registrar. And also we manage DNS and recursive DNS total solutions to our clients. So it's to this question, it's hard to actually identify all the factors that will define the success of our organization, because we offer from different angles and different identities, but I think as a registry backend service provider, the security resilience of our services and from the policy side and political side, from the policy side, technical side of the expertise that we can offer to clients as defined the success of a registry service provider. And as a registry, the success of the TLD operations will define the success. And there is a different metrics, a different criteria, such as the registration rate, the renewal rates, and also the usage of the websites under the TLDs, and also the brand image of the TLDs. Because I believe that building a TLD registry is actually building a brand. You need to have a healthy image of the brand, and that means you need to deal with the abuse actively. You need to make the registration sustainable and avoiding frauds in your TLD namespace as much as possible, to work with all the industry players to make sure it's a secure and a sounded brand TLD. And with the management DNS and recursive DNS, we serve a lot of big corporates in China and also abroad. And I believe that be able to define the actual needs and solving the actual pinpoint from the customers, and also building the solution that make sure their DNS infrastructure is secure and their DNS usage is resilient. That's the most important as a DNS service providers, because at the moment, I think the internet, in the internet era, that we already pathing into a time of security. Security is most important in a lot of organizations. It's their main concern. I think that's my understanding of the different criteria as successful organization as you act as a different types of service providers. Yeah, thank you.
So does it work? Yes. Thank you. My name is Hiro Hota from .jp CCTLD registry for Japan. The definition of success of ours is just the same as yours. Thank you. So, as a CCTLD registry, our customers are not only the restaurants, but also the restaurants, and maybe and internet users are also our customers, of course, because they use the .jp domain names. So, and the aspect of success is for the restaurants, they need to use actually as they wish. So not only the domain name, number of domain names registered, but also the more important thing is the actual use as wished of domain names. I think that's the best, or that's the most important aspect of the success of, as a viewpoint of registry. For the registrar, of course, efficiency and comfort in dealing with domain names while doing their core business, such as web hosting or something, and registrar business. So that's another aspect of success from the viewpoint of registries. And for the internet users, they need to access the internet safely and efficiently. So literacy in the internet and domain names, raising their literacy is very important. And so for the end users, the literacy is a success aspect. So we think that for each kind of customers, we need some definition of success. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sun Zhao from CNIC. You know, CNIC is the registry for DNS, Chinese CCTLD. For DNS, we think besides the domain name registration volume, we think the domain name applications, market share, and the usage of DNS domain name by important websites is also very important for us. You know, we often check how many websites are using DNS in China mainland. You know, there is more than 4 million websites in China mainland. So what we care about is how many websites are using DNS. And also we checked in the important industry how many websites is using DNS, like such as banking industry, or government, and also education. So we think the important website using DNS is a good case for us to promote and to let the small enterprise knows what kind of domain name they should choose. Okay.
Thank you. Then, Adele, how about your
Thank you. Thank you, Wilson. Good morning to Hong Kong. And first of all, my apology for not being able to present in person among all of you. Question is really good question. You know, from a commercial point of view, yes, the numbers speaks about the success. We are already 3.5 million CCTLD domains in the country. Probably we are in the first 10 in the world. Another factor which always goes is the revenue. How much revenue you are able to get, and what is the increment in the revenue every year you are getting. So I'm very happy to share with you that the revenue which we are crossing is almost 20% growth every year. In addition to this, I think what my other panelists have said, the brand plays a very important role. I am very happy to inform that an independent survey revealed that .in, the CCTLD of India, is the 7th most popular brand globally. So that gives us a happiness. Now, another important thing is that adoption of .in in the geographical areas. So we look at whether the domain CCTLD is adopted by urban, semi-urban and rural population also. So if it is adopted across the country, then it is a great success which you can say. In addition to this, one more important thing which we always value is adoption of domain in non-English speaking population. So India, with more than 82% of the population who do not converse in English, this particular aspect is very important. So more than 50,000 IDN domains are already in place with the customer, which gives a large number of satisfaction to .in. India believes in delivering an open, safe and trusted and accountable internet to the people of India. Now, when we talk about open, it also includes inclusive internet. So we believe that CCTLD should be able to help the broadband provider to reach to the last man in the society. We are also working on accountability. This is related to the contents on various applications and social media. So this is an important aspect which brings a trust and safety and a belief in the internet as a total. What my other panelists has said, a latency in resolution of the queries is important, which brings a happiness among the people and the time it takes to resolve a query. And this is related to, of course, DNS. And as I said that we are believing in safe and trusted internet, we believe that if the minimum number of DNS abuses or misinformation or disconnect are reported from the people, then it is really a good honor. I just want to inform the audience here that India has already crossed around 860 million broadband users till date, and it is growing regularly. We hope that by next year we should cross 100,000, means 1 billion broadband users in the country. So if the number of broadband users are increasing, it gives a confidence that people are adopting domain, people are adopting all the infrastructure which is provided for the internet. So these are the factors which I personally feel is important. And lastly, .in is basically, or CCTLD or GTLD are normally, promoted by the web developers. If a CCTLD is preferred by the web developers, then you feel that yes, it is a brand which is accepted by the people, which is really liked by the people. So these are the factors which I personally feel are important for success in India. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's good sharing. So to conclude, the adoption, the growth, the renewable business continuity and security is the key for the success. So question to Anil, to you, because the NIXI is a little bit different to other panel speakers, because you're involved in the internet exchange for a long time and one of the biggest internet exchange around the world. And then you also provide the domain name service, DNS and registry service. So could you share with us any insight about the cybersecurity for DNS? Because I believe that the internet exchange will have a lot of insight about the cybersecurity. And also, do you have any sharing or insight to us that should we work closely with the local internet exchange company so that we can have more insight and more security information? I know that you have a presentation on that. Could you share with us?
Yes. Can we get the presentation, please? Thank you. Next slide. So if we talk about DNS performance, you know what, normally I'll just take a few minutes only to recapitulate the DNS, because you must be discussing this yesterday also in detail. So first, of course, is the response time. Whenever anybody is putting a query, how fast the query is responded. And we know that DNS is built up on various steps with various servers, and how fast the customer is able to get these queries that is what we are looking at. Then we are also looking at what is the time to live accuracy of the resolution. If the resolution is reaching to the right website, right email, right app, then yes, we can understand that DNS is working well. And of course, how much queries are getting a success rate. So these are what we are looking at for the DNS when we are preparing the DNS. But the outcome of this will be how user perceive that DNS is working and how they feel confident about using this particular DNS. And then how much trust people are able to build up in the entire DNS system. Next slide, please. So this is what normally we look at, what is happening as the threat which are reported virtually every day. I just want to inform you that an organization in India is being attacked on an average 2,042 times per week in the last 6 months, as compared to 1,211 attacks per organization globally. So basically, these threats are increasing as the number of broadband users are increasing and number of CCTLDs are increasing, or domains are increasing. So the normal type of threats which are being faced by Indian customers are DDoS attacks, DNS hijacking, and cache poisoning. Because now most of the big content delivery networks are putting cache in the system. And the mitigation which we are working on this, we are promoting more and more internet exchange users and also the registrar to adopt the DNSSEC. We are also working at the national level for DNS threat intelligence. And we are sharing this information of DNS threats with various organizations to minimize the DNS problems. And the basic objective on which we are working is to improve incident response time. The moment an incident is reported, then how fast we are able to attack on it. Next slide, please. Now let us look at what is happening in the India. Several important websites which are public facing and which are government websites are being attacked and are being compromised. So we have given only few selected one here. In 2009, the major attacks were at Air India, NDTV and Paytm. Now in all the cases, you have seen that website was defaced, customer data is stolen, and in case of NDTV, a malware was also introduced. In 2020, Indian Railway, which is one of the biggest railway of the world, the website was defaced, train schedules were disrupted, and a lot of trains were stopped because of misinformation. Flipkart, which is a very important e-commerce website, again had the website defaced and customer data stolen. SBI, which is one of the biggest financial bank in India, again the same thing. And the last which we faced at the All India Institute of Medical Science, where millions of patients come every day. So website was defaced and we were out of service for almost 5 days. So because India has a population which is 1,400 millions, with every attack, millions get affected. And it is reported, knowingly, unknowingly, that hundreds of millions of dollars were paid in ransom also. And the biggest impact, which I personally feel is in DNS attacks, is the trust in internet users. It is sometimes losing. They have a fear whether when we are touching a mobile phone, a mobile app, or a reaching to a website, are we safe? Next slide, please. We are working on this particular mantra, saying that if we have to mitigate and minimize the DNS attacks, and yesterday also in the session, it is very clearly said that it is not possible to stop DNS attacks or DNS abuse, but we can minimize it. So I think it is very, very important that we should be able to collaborate. Who should collaborate? The DNS operators, registries like NICSI, registrars together, RIRs and NIRs to ensure that the DNS is safe from IPv4 and IPv6, and also the security agencies or lawful enforcement agencies. Because if they share information and the best practices, I think adoption not only within a country but outside the country can also improve. Next slide, please. Now, if we talk about what we are doing, first of all, we are taking a spam house report on daily basis, and we are sharing this spam house report with every registrar. And we are asking registrar to act on those reported domains which are not good. Now, in this particular case, we are also working on now putting the registrars in the grey list in case the registrar consistently is not working on the report of the spam house. We are conducting awareness and training. For example, for Internet Exchange ISPs, we are conducting a training on every fortnightly basis. And with the registrars, we are conducting a training on monthly basis. Now, in this training, we are sharing the best practices. We are also discussing the issues which are faced by an individual in ISP or a registrar, and we are giving solutions to them. We are also telling what action NICSI is taking for the best practices. NICSI has also prepared an anti-abuse policy which is available on the NICSI website, which tell that in case of any abuse to any individual, customer or a ISP or a registrar, what recourses are available for them and how the nation can help. I think this is the most important thing which I want to share with all the audience today, is that NICSI has introduced a eKYC for registration of a domain. eKYC, we have a citizen card, 16-digit number of a citizen card, and the registrars are feeding this 16-digit card and numbers, and then getting complete information from the central government website about the person who is going to become a registrant. And this is a quite success things which are happening. In addition to this, we are also undertaking re-verification of the who is detail on sample basis, that we collect around 5% to 10% of the registration on daily basis. and do the re-verification. And then we report back to the registrar about the doubtful cases. So this is helping us in mitigating the abuses and possible threats. At the organization level, we are going to be very active in the APAC DNS forum in future that we have decided and we have communicated to the organizers. We have set up a Center of Excellence of DNS and DNS Security at CDAC, which is a very important, virtually on daily basis on this. And we are part of the DAR of the ICANN, and we are getting a monthly report, and we are working on this. So these are the efforts which NIXI is doing, and these are the results which we have. The best practices which NIXI is having is that in Internet Exchange Points, ISPs are on the board of directors of NIXI. All exchanges which are there, 77 exchanges are there with NIXI today. They are all connected on these lines. We are providing a DNS training to all our ISP friends, and we are also supporting them in case there is any DNS threats or any configuration issues with the ISPs. And similar best practices we are doing with the registrar. Registrars are on the advisory level of NIXI, and we have a WhatsApp group of registrars which we work on minute-to-minute basis in case there are any issues which are there. And as far as marketing programs are concerned, we definitely take advice and consultancy from the registrars. So this is how the collaboration of all our partners are there to ensure that we provide a open, safe, and trusted and accountable internet to the people of India. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very comprehensive and detailed sharing. I guess most of us get a lot of good point here to see how to review our current system. So next question, I will go back to CNX, China. China is one of the top adopter for international domain name globally. So could you share with us what is the advantage for the higher IDN penetration for the drive the business and also the DNS business? And also in China, how the user can leverage this high IDN to support their online presence in China market?
Okay. At the present, more than 30 registries, more than 30 Chinese IDNs are in operation in China mainland. More registries for Chinese IDNs brings more motivation for Chinese IDNs. In recent years, all the registries of China IDNs has been actively promoting the application and the development of Chinese IDNs and work hard for the promotion and the diversity of Chinese domain names. You know, the promotion of Chinese IDNs is different from the traditional ASK2 domain names. For traditional ASK2 domain names, the promotion is mostly through visual diversity and the channel marketing, and to attract users to register online. But for Chinese IDNs, it requires more user educations and more communication with users. So the sales for Chinese IDNs is mostly through face-to-face or phone sales. So for the current situation, Chinese domain IDNs has become a segmented field in the domain name industry in China mainland. I think maybe the income for the registries and registrars for Chinese IDNs is now bigger than the traditional ASK2 domain names, because the Chinese IDNs price is much higher than traditional ASK2 domain names. So I think now Chinese IDNS is an important part for the domain name industry in China mainland. And for the enterprise and the organizations who used Chinese IDNs, I think they often use the Chinese domain names on their advertising and their promotions, because the Chinese IDNs is easy to remember for Chinese, and also is totally the same with their name of companies and organizations. That's how to use the Chinese IDNs, I think.
So thank you. So then back to Hotta-san. So in the beginning, we talked about the success. One of them is a beautiful way and the domain number. So as my study, the .jp is one of the highest growth in terms of domain name for last few years, because most of CCTLD encountered the challenges, not much growth last few years. But Japan still have a very positive growth in last few years. So what is the reason and what is the strategy? And then we found that another case is in Japan, the very strict registration requirement, such as a document, other thing. It seems this kind of restriction didn't stop the domain name growth. Could you share the secret on them so that we can follow your strategy and replicate the success in other countries?
Thank you, Wilson. I prepared a slide deck for this. So could you put up my slides here? Yes, thank you. This is the first page, and yes, this is the answer for the first question Wilson gave me. So what is successful to JP? And I said that we have typically three kinds of customers: restaurant, internet users, and the most important thing is actual use of domain names, which is the most important one. We pursue this absolute number and ratio to be the highest one. This is our success criteria. And this is the JP status by numbers. The number of registration is 1.7 million. It's not so big because the population is 1.3, I'm sorry, 130 million in Japan, so only 1.some% for this, right? And percentage of resolvable domains. This is one of the measures how successful we are. So we remain 91 or 92% of the name server setting of all the domain name, JP domain names registered. So I think this is higher than that, higher than other TLDs. And those name servers are not for the parking, but not for something. So the real web page or real mail servers uses this domain name. This is very important, we think. And of course, the availability of JP DNS, 100%, as everyone says. And number of restaurants, this is a kind of a unique figure, I think. Over 500 restaurants we have for only 1.3 or 1.7 million domain names. A large number of restaurants we have. So why? So and this is the surrounding trend for domain names. maybe you learned a lot from yesterday and today, and of course, you learn every day that the value of CC-TLD domain names or value of any TLD domain names may dilute under the increasing number and variation of TLDs. However, CC-TLDs can be specialized and differentiated by reflecting the features of their designated countries' territories. In case of the JP, Japan. So how can we use the characteristics of Japanese market? That's what we have to think about as a CCTLD registry. Of course, the policies of CCTLD registries can be defined by respective CCTLD registry or manager. So as Wilson said, that the JP has a kind of very restricted policy that only Japanese resident and Japanese companies or organizations can register .jp domain names. So that may shrink the volume of .jp domain names, but 1.7 million is, we think it's okay. It's, for example, .com domain names in Japan has around 4 or 5 million. So they are bigger than our market, but many of them are not actually used or maliciously used. So 1.7 million .jp is not a bad number, we think. At least I think, all right? And the second one is under increasing invisibility of domain names due to richer applications and software, as you know. Yes, social network systems, and of course, Google's and something like that. So, however, basic applications such as email, web, and so on will survive for universal and global communication on a flat environment, as everybody said, as John said. Okay. And keys to success in case of .jp. So I have 2 slides for this. Making JP domain names always safely resolvable. As Anil said, that the safely resolvable is one of the key things that the domain names are actually used or not. So identification of domain registrants is assured because it's limited to Japanese registrants. It's easier than verify they are really existent or they are really them that who is domain name holder says. So, and domain names are normally linked to name servers. Number of DNS securities per domain has been increased double in 10 years. So each domain name is used more and more every day. And JPDNS is 100% up and running, of course. And this is the next one is a unique one for our company. Root DNS, we operate mRoot DNS. Root DNS is on top of TLD DNS. So if we don't have TLD DNS operating, .jp cannot be resolved. So root DNS is very important for us to live, to survive. So root DNS is operated by us as well. We earn no money from this, but we do this mainly because to keep JP DNS up and running, to be used, to be available. And the next one is, this is also important and maybe unique. As a registry, we inform DNS operators in Japan about how to mitigate DNS vulnerabilities whenever they are found and announced. We educate all the Japanese DNS operators how to mitigate DNS vulnerabilities. So to resolve the domain names, it's a kind of a supply chain. Resolver and authoritative DNS servers. So authoritative name servers has a hierarchy, and all of the DNS should work safely. So how to do that? How to get that situation? So for this, we have a kind of responsibility for the resolver side to be up and running in that safe mode. So we inform DNS operators in Japan about how to mitigate DNS vulnerabilities. We earn no money again from here. And we educate the community, including kids, how the internet and domain name work. This is also important because they will be the real user of the domain name of the internet. And they need to know how domain names can be a bad one. It can be a good one. So we educate this. Earning no money. Okay. So the keys to success in the case of the JP. So this is the first slide. And second one is a specialization in Japanese market. Restaurants and restaurants must have local presence in Japan, as I said. Local presence requirement works positively because we validate and verify they are really existent or not. Something. And qualification checks such as COJP. COJP means a company in Japan. Registrant is a legally registered company in Japan using the governmental database. And then aligning to Japanese laws, regulations, and business practices. Maybe the Japanese business practices are somewhat different from other countries' one. So we can focus on Japanese business practice because our registrars must be a Japanese company. Maybe this is very restricted, but it's a good way to be secured. At least currently we believe so. And Japanese is the official language, so if we use English, it is not easy to communicate 100%. As I'm not a good English speaker. So Japanese official language for the domain name registration policy and business communication or something like that. And the last one is also interesting. Physical visit to most registrars' offices, physically, with some souvenirs, to discuss how to increase their loyalty. Good. And as I said, we have around about 500 registrars. Our sales division, we have sales division. Our sales division staffs are very busy in visiting most of the restaurants. So, I can skip this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then it's good to remind us not only using the internet, we better pay some site visit to our customer. So back to the discussion to some challenge. So I would like to ask a question to Sophia. So ZDNS is one of the large domain name player in China. So recently we can see some just like Web3 domain, and also in previously we have some social media, all those things impacting about the domain name business. So what do you see the future and this kind of new technology impact to domain name and DNS?
Thank you, Wilson. Thank you, Wilson. This is a very interesting question, I think. A lot of, as industry, we talk to a lot of counterparts, and everybody is asking the same question. What is impacts of Web3? And I just, outside of the venue, I just asked Mr. Huang, haven't seen it for 3 years, and I asked him, what do you think about Web3 impacts on the domain industry? And he's like, wow, a lot of people are looking to buy a new TLD. And a lot of Web3 companies actually are looking for a TLD to buy in the industry. And that's, and then, so different people have a different opinion, so different reactions, right? Domainers probably would like that. And then as we companies working in the industry and on the basic, we worry about what all the new technology on all these applications will impact the industry. And personally, and I think ZDNS is very strong belief on the importance of DNS in the internet. Maybe for next 50 years. We still have very strong belief of 50 to 100 years, who knows? But we have strong belief that importance will still remains and exist and strengthen. And why is that? Because let's go back to the origin of the DNS system or the internet structures. The 3 layers in the internet structures, as we defined and talked to a lot of, folks outside of the industry. I think the first layer in the ground will be the physical infrastructures like 5G, IPv6, right? Internet of Things. And this the physical infrastructure that was building all the softwares, carries all the softwares and usage. And then there was the top layer will be all the apps. So all the applications. I think that carries a different, like the TikTok, Facebook, and all the different usage that was in the top layer. And the middle layer is the DNS system, right? The DNS, the routing system. And I think that's defined it as the navigating system of internets. You need navigators to go anywhere. You can't go anywhere without it. So that's how ZDNS view, right? Let's go as the origin of how internet is used. If we see all the technology, all the new concept, on all the new applications, including Web3, including now the ChatGPT, right? The AI technology, and also industrial internet of industrial. And in China, we have new concept every month, or every quarter, or every year. People want to create new industry, a new business. It's a very robust economic system. But then all these apps and all these infrastructure cannot live without DNS. That's how we, educate the market and how we bring awarenesses of the markets, the importance of DNS. And what ZDNS is doing right now is we brought it. It's not we created, but we trying to define the DNS to be able to capture the new trends in the industry and in the economy. The original DNS was very simple, right? It's more about technology. And then the next generation of DNS we need to define a new next generation DNS to able to talk to the same languages of all the folks in the markets and in the new technology world. And the DNS we define are divided by 3 parts. Let's take DNS, right? D stands for domain. And then, as we understand domain, we need to build internet that is internet governance. So all the related security issues and internet governance issues and standards are within that region. So that's how we define domain. And name, that domain name, right? Name is actually resources. So second level domain resources, top level resources, those resources are very important to the companies and individuals. We need to encourage people still to actively participate and to apply for those digital assets and also digital brands. So that's on the namespace. And last with S is a system. So the system is what's supporting all the domains and names usage, right? So on that, in the system part, we need to provide more secure and more sufficient, more resilience system to support the usage of names and the governance of domains. So we basically defined next generation DNS within China that is actually cope with the how the technical world is involved and also how the market is involved. So my understanding is more about how we can be out and be outreached and educating people the navigating system is matters. And that I think with the collaborative effort from the industry, we need to do it together. Because it's a very fractional world. You know, I mean, with TikTok, you have 5 seconds intention of watching a video. So we need to be out and, be out and educating the market and grab the attention and let people know that, what the industry is doing. So I think it's not about, it's not about AI that make you lose your job. It's how you use AI, right? So it's not all the new applications and new technologies, how you cope with them. That's my understanding. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's good to know we still have a good future, and coming 20 years, we still have a lot of ICANN event in the future. Okay, then because we don't have much time, so let's ask some questions from the floor. Okay, maybe I ask some online questions first. One of them is, how can your organization leverage DNS data and analytics to get the insight into the network performance, security performance, and user behavior? Do you have any potential use case about that can share with us? Do you have any DNS analytics so that you can have some insight can share with us on that?
Okay, maybe I can share some things, some works we have done in Cynic. We checked all the .cn domain name every week to find all the websites using .cn domain name, and we will check the content of the websites, so we can find the illegal websites by ourselves. So if we find the illegal website, we will shut down it directly. So it's not the order by government or legal department, but we think we should do something to make all the .cn name is safe for all the users. Okay, and we have cooperations with banks and e-commerce websites to shut down phishing websites. We have do this since 2008, and we have shut down more than 400,000 phishing websites. So we need the, for example, Taobao, a big e-commerce website in China. If he finds some phishing website similar to Taobao, he can send the website to us. If we confirm the website is a phishing website, we will shut down it directly. Okay, so that's what we have done in Cynic.
So, any other comment?
So with the data analytics, because we have a lot of recursive and management DNS data, not just the registry data. To supporting my statement before, with ICBC, like the bank we work with, is the biggest bank in the world at the moment, I think. Every second, they have 300,000 transactions happens with the DNS. And then every day, they will have 3 billion transactions happens every day. So that's how important with their online bankings. And that transactions and that analytics are captured in our recursive DNS total solutions. So with all this data, we'll be able to actually find out what is the best anycast system for them to CDN, to with the CDNs, and also what the DNS system be able to distributing the traffic, be able to make sure that transactions going smoothly. And then secondly, there was DNS attacks every day, right? We talk a lot about DNS abuse, but actually whether DNS attack is part of the DNS abuse was, some people have different opinion, but I think DNS attacks right now is very strong issues within the big corporates. And what the DNS doing right now, we offers recursive management DNS with safeguard software. What is safeguard? The safeguard software has databases from different security companies. And when we detected the DNS attack in the recursive servers, we'll be able to reject the visit, first of all. And if there is attacks happens that was not be detected by our software, that means the attacks happens, they will result in a downturn on the DNS server of the bank. What we do is we have actually recursive data as a backup every seconds in our software. And what happened is it will reduce the downtime from the bank. We have a previous case actually just happened a few months ago. There was a bank actually have a DNS attack, was supposed to be down for three hours. And what happens with the safeguard is it shortened the attack time, and then it was the data was restored, and the servers were back on track within half an hour. So that I don't think you can avoid all the DNS attacks by data analytics. So, that's the ideal way because we want to be 100% safe, but that's impossible because there were always new ways of doing attacks, and that you can't avoid it all. But what happened? The second solution is to use data analytics and also all the backup solutions, be able to avoid the downturn is too long, okay, to reduce the damage. So I think there's a lot of data in different layers in the DNS assistance, and we can do a lot with it. We can create new business, to create new products, new services, and to meet the needs of the corporates. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So let's see any question from on-site. Any people would like to have a question to the speaker? Then maybe I ask another question from online. So, but this is maybe a bit technical, but I just see whether you can answer. So one question is, you know, we have a DNS and also have a ENS, so the Web3 basis domain name system. So the question is, do you think the DNS and ENS will combine in the future? And also, if you see that some of domain now can support both ENS and DNS, do you think this is the trend of the development of domain, or you have another thinking?
Sorry, I couldn't catch your question. The DNS and
ENS, Ethereum's domain name service.
Ah, okay. I don't have any answer.
So maybe this one is too technical for our speaker. So maybe another question. So you know, in the past we have some technology just like the CDN and also the Anycast service, you know, generated by the DNS service. But do you think any other DNS technology will generate from the DNS server? For example, because in the past we don't have a CDN, but because of more popular in internet, so we have a CDN. Then in the past we don't need Anycast because we don't have DDoS, this kind of service. But the question is, do you see any new technology will generated by the DNS server?
Thank you, Wilson. I don't have new technologies to be used in the DNS at this moment immediately, but even the Anycast technology, how to use Anycast efficiently and effectively is still under investigation in our organization, because for example, of course we have Anycast instances all over the world, and if we do need to put some node, Anycast node somewhere, so how to define or how to detect where we should put such node? It cannot be determined easily. We need to collect the DNS data all over the world, and we need to assume or predict where, if we put new node here, what will happen. We need to do research about that and something like that. So in our organization, we do just started to research how to, where to put Anycast node efficiently, effectively, because for the DNS service, we don't earn money. So putting many Anycast node is just losing money. So we need to put our node effectively and efficiently. So even Anycast needs is still a kind of new technology to be actually in operation. Thank you.
So thank you. I think the technology is evolving, so it may be difficult to predict the new one. So, okay, because of time, so thank you very much for 4 good speakers to share with us today in different perspectives from cybersecurity, growth strategy and also the DNS development. Hope that it can help all of us to plan ahead for our future roadmap in DNS. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wilson. Thank you, all our panelists. Let us take a photo together. Would our guests please step forward, then step closer, and then please face our official camera. Sorry? So, I'm sorry, there's one more question. We still have time, don't worry.
One. Sorry, interrupting your group photo. And first of all, thank you for sharing your experience and practice about the DNS, how it works or your home, in country. And I have a question for Mr. Hira. I'm wondering, you have mentioned about identification of the domain name registrant. I mean, owner of the domain name, yeah? And can you share your practice about how do you identify domain name registrant? Can you?
Could you repeat that question?
Sorry. I would like to ask Mr. Hira. He mentioned domain name identification. Verify domain name owner, I mean registrant. And you have mentioned, therefore, may I know how do you identify, verify domain name owner, I mean registrant?
Okay.
Can you share?
Yes. Thank you very much for the question. So, at least when a domain name is applied for registration, at least we check the postal address, whether it's really in Japan or not, the street address and some city name and something like that. And the phone number, yes, we need to check. And especially for organizations such as company or something which is legally registered in the government, we check the registration data which is given to us by the restaurant with the registered data in the government. So we need to check and whether it's matched or not. And it's not matched, we refuse such a registration. So we check, yes, one by one check. Thank you.
Okay. So any other question to all of us? Then okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So once again, let's give another big round of applause to thank our moderator and our panelists. Let's keep the photo taking section. Would you please step closer? Please face our official camera. Thank you so much for your question. It's really a great opportunity for us to exchange our ideas, our insights with our guests. Thank you so much. Please be seated downstage. Thank you. We are going to take a lunch break from now. In the afternoon section, we will have a section with the topic of crisis management in the digital economy, dealing with cyber threats in this room. Please stay tuned. And this section will begin at 1:30. Would you please be back by 1:30 p.m. Thank you. See you in the afternoon section. Thank you. you.